getting my coffee going here. What's going on, my friend?
It's been a good weekend. I had a great set on Friday night
Yeah. And why did this one work versus some of the other ones?
because it had none of everything I'd written ever.
Oh,
I was
oh, cool.
basically just talking about different stories from the pub, from different
Right.
universities, different countries. All I did was just tell them stories of my life.
And it works.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get as many laughs immediately that way, but you get
Mm.
enough. And I like that because it's harder to gauge, but at the end, you know whether you did well or not. Hold on, let me get one more light on this dang play. Sorry, homie. There we go. I said I was ready, and evidently I was not. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll do this backdrop over here today. Well, I turn fucking 60 tomorrow.
Advanced happy birthday, considering it's going
I
to be midnight
know.
tonight for me.
Right. Well, and this will come out on my birthday. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's very weird to be 60 because I'm not prepared. I think that's the safest way to put it. People are like, well, what are you going to do? And I go, why would anything change now? You really think I got a plan?
I was actually listening to a podcast about people who have something called their digital locker that they hand over to their kids. And it's
Oh, cool.
basically like all their accounts that they're on.
Right.
And if somebody ever wants to see it again or listen to them, they basically go through all of that information and kind of
Wow.
feels like you still have that person around. Not that I'm telling you to do a
No.
death monologue today.
Oh, no. No. See, my thing is, and I mean this, I probably have more meaningful conversations with you doing this than I do most of my other stuff because most of my other stuff is it's short and it's only politically oriented. And then we move on to, whatever the other 5 things I have going at the time. Kathy and I did maybe 100 cooking videos or more for the not local newspaper, it's a statewide newspaper.
Yeah.
And those would get back then on the internet, they'd get 100,000 views the first day, then 80, then 60, then 40. And those are all cataloged. I guess I mean, my file's pretty big. Like if somebody wanted to AI me, there's enough shit out there to literally duplicate me. The only thing that I don't know how to get is my brother Brian has a videotape of my first TV news interview after I owned my first company. And I'd been out all night with this girl, drinking, all the things that come along with that. No sleep whatsoever, forgot about the interview, showed up and then did it. And that was my first one. I would like to see that one now because I was 21 years old, and I had all the arrogance of an 18-year-old white male.
Yeah.
And confidence for no reason, right?
If we ever find that, I'm going to slice it into one of these episodes and be like, guys, this is what this little shit was when he was 21.
Right. Yeah.
Not that I was any better.
No, nobody is better. And at this advanced age, since I enter the last quarter tomorrow, you look at it and go, I mean, I'm impressed. I was stupid enough to do some of the stuff I did, but I'm still like, oh, Lord, I'm glad I grew out of that. So all things good, my man. All things good.
Since we're speaking about life, I'll tell you about this really sad moment I had the other day where I was standing on like a sidewalk and I was talking on the phone to somebody in Oklahoma. And I was eating like some yummy street side, the chaat food that we get here. And I was bitching about internet connectivity and something about my computer and this, that, the other. I saw this family pull up in a 2-wheeler, all right? 2 kids,
right?
Mom and dad. They get off, they use the seat that they were sitting on as the little table. I looked at them enjoying their dishes. They looked like the happiest I've ever seen anybody. And here, this miserable cunt was sitting here and complaining while I was eating the same thing that they were eating and loving, whereas I was just sitting there going like, oh my God, what is wrong with me?
Hold on. And and you were interacting between two continents on top of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On the phone, which is shit that was only in movies 20 years ago. Well, 40 years ago.
Yeah. And
yeah.
It was like that moment.
Proud
it
moment.
wasn't even a moment. It was like a 5 moments of shame plus jealousy,
right.
envy. I went through all 5 stages of grief
all of them.
while I was just finishing it.
God, isn't that crazy how that really actually works? We are all so spoiled. And so I'm doing this food deal on Sunday called Chef's Fest. And all of the money goes to homeless teens. And so what they try to do is build small home villages. And my wife and I were talking, and I go, she goes, you gave 100% of the proceeds of the books to it? And I go, yes, I'm not sure there's a more fitting charity than homeless teens, because what could be worse than being a homeless teen? You could be trans or gay or anything like that, and then be ostracized even further, because it sucks being a poor kid. It really sucks being a poor homeless kid. And then it really, 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 really sucks to be a little weird on top of all of it.
Weird, different. Do you know that there was a comic called Nimesh Patel who was thrown off stage at NYU a couple of years ago? Because he was doing this bit about nobody chooses to be black and gay.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty valid.
They literally got angry with him and threw him off stage. They didn't let him finish his set.
So they didn't get to finish his explaining why.
I was like, okay, well, this is what we get.
So he was at a Democratic meeting, and like Chris Rock had the best thing I've ever seen in my entire life. He goes, look, I'll trade with any one of you guys. If you think it's so great being me, I'll trade with any of you. And no one raised their hand, and he goes, and I'm rich. So everybody knows the deal. Nobody wants to admit the deal. That's, I still remember being in Mexico. I was with my son, and he was 6 years old, and we were at a carnival, and they had this really pitiful menagerie before you went in, which is probably what Barnum and Bailey had at one point. I mean, I was awestruck with the pitifulness of it all. And so he and I get into the tent, and he's blazing white with like brown hair, and myself, and he goes, Dad, everybody's looking at us. And I said, next time you're in a room and there's one person that doesn't look like you in there, that's how they feel. So go be their friend.
That's a good lesson.
It is great for him to have seen, and he was always the nicest person in the world. And that just reiterated, look, they were just curious of, for one, what the fuck are these people doing here? Are they lost? Did they come with the circus? That kind of shit. But I always enjoyed that he could accept those lessons. Now, my other son, probably not as easy to describe that. He'd be like, everybody's looking at me. Isn't that awesome?
Taking that the wrong way.
Oh, God, yeah, exactly. And my first son, I had this, his grandfather. His grandfather had died, so the mother's grandma's boyfriend. But he was a great guy named Morgan. And he was like, Sean, Gabriel feels a lot. And I go, oh, I know. And he goes, well, you got to be careful with that one. Those kids are a little tricky because, they feel a lot more than other people. And I was like, yes. And that has turned out to be the case. So nothing I can do about it. So I don't know if you saw this. I posted this video yesterday or the day before. I had to borrow my daughter's car. My car's getting in the shop, getting worked on, and she's out of town. And she had this big Ziploc bag and inside of other bags in the back of her car, and that it had like 6 different items in each bag that she'd separated out. She's very, very organized. But it's for homeless people that, it's in that way, there's no money exchange. There's nothing of you questioning what they're going to do with it. It's all food. And I think there were a couple of hygiene products in there pretty well. And I was like,
nice.
God, I didn't even know she did this. Kathy's always done that. She always has granola bars and all this other shit packaged up. And I'm glad that passed on to the next one.
That is awesome, though. Like to have little pouches with like toothpaste, shampoo, whatever other things they need, plus snacks.
And what people don't understand, what they really need is socks. Can you imagine walking around? I mean, it was 90 degrees when I came in at 4 a.m. 90 at 4 a.m.
Oh God.
One of the towns here, Deepak, was 125 degrees. Feels like temperature. I hate that word. Feels like. At 125 yesterday, and it's called. It's about 40 miles from here, and you go 5 more degrees. It's unsustainable for humans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and wasn't
that's
like
an hour.
Vegas? Wasn't Vegas underwater because of the hurricane?
With the hurricane, I have not looked this morning because I got up and I was having my 60-year-old dream. So I woke up and came into work and didn't look at anything. I walked the dog, ran into 2 homeless people walking at 4 a.m. because it's the only time they can travel. You know, it's still 90. Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of them I was talking to him. I'm like, man, just be safe. It's hot out there. He goes, I'm doing the best I can. And, you know, just headed on down the road. It is, it's a little nuts. And the hurricane hitting Los Angeles, that daughter is in Los Angeles right now. The one who has, right. So she was going out there and she knew the hurricane was coming. And I'm like, your friend lives on the beach. Are you? She's not rich, but she's, you know, she got some little tiny place on the beach. You go, you don't have any idea what you're up against here. And, you know, until you've been through one.
Oh, yeah.
It's like earthquakes. You've never been in an earthquake till you've been in an earthquake in San Francisco. It's
yeah. I don't remember the first week I was in Oklahoma. I was sitting in university and we had a tornado warning. And the building shook at the same time with an earthquake. And I was like, oh, goodness. I was like, where the hell did I move to?
Exactly. Well, I guess they have nothing else to do here but learn. So, well, I was watching a Sinead O'Connor interview this morning for some reason or another when I was trying to leave the house. And this lady asked her about religion in Ireland. And I was like, okay, I'm actually going to tune in right now. And so she grew up in the theocracy of Ireland, and then through her life it changed, and not just because of her ripping up the Pope's picture and stuff, but it was a fascinating interview, and I would recommend anybody, you know, just look up Sinead O'Connor on religion in Ireland. You'll pick it up.
Wasn't she like put in some home where there were like these sisters who used to do like laundry and something like that?
So those were for delinquent kids and teenage mothers. So I don't know if she was actually in the home or knew of the homes. Okay. So what ends up happening is everybody toes the line. So you think of abuse victims, there's always 5 or 6 people around that knew, didn't do anything because they needed their jobs, you know, whatever lame ass excuse they have. But so the sisters in those would take in these pregnant girls, and literally it's a life of servitude. You don't get to leave after you have the kid.
Yeah, you just
end up. And then you're a laundry person for the rest of your life. Look, it is hard for people to imagine because we look like the richest people in the world. We literally have been the Guatemalans of Europe for, you know, centuries and centuries and centuries, and not just because of the British, but the Roman Catholic Church had a huge lock on the entire country.
Yeah,
you know, when you're so fucking poor that all you have is hope, the people selling hope do really well.
Oh yeah, I see those fucking peddlers even here filling up stadiums.
Right. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. You can't afford to eat, but you got $20 to go see whoever that is. Yeah,
I know. Like even here, I look at it, and there are people like lining up all the way down the street to get into this little empty ground where they put like tents and a stage for some guy to come preach. And I'm like, oh my God.
Did I ever tell you about being in Peru, and the military came in and surrounded this downtown of I believe the place was called Piura, and ancient downtown, and so they had a temple of whatever Indians gods they were praying to at the time. Catholic Church comes in, they tear down the temple, but they kept the whole base of it because they were rocks that were like 6 foot by 4 foot, you know, great base for a building. And they built a Catholic Church on top of it. Well, there's a preacher from America that was an evangelical Christian. And and the audience was maybe 2,000 or 3,000 natives, and they're all about 4'2", maybe 4'4", top.
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting into it. He's a good evangelical guy, and they've got somebody translating for him. And I'm standing there watching it just in awe of, so we've gone from their original religion to Catholics took it over, and now this appears to be coming in. And they're just poor as hell and have absolutely nothing to their names. And the military comes marching in, surrounds the whole place. And so I'm there with 9 people. I go, we've got to go right now. And they go, no, we can do this. And I go, these are 14-year-olds with machine guns. Let's get out of here. There's no conscience. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And finally, we got about 2 blocks away, and I don't think they marched on the crowd. What they did is intimidated the crowd to shut the deal down. And I had never been in that flipping crazy of a third world thing where I, honest to God, thought I was going to get shot down.
Now,
over religion.
Someone the other day corrected me and told me the politically correct term is New World countries. They're not using third world anymore. I don't know. You liberals seem to be wasting a lot of time renaming shit.
Yeah. Okay. So you know where all this came from? Fucking rappers changing their name every 5 years. I have nothing against rappers, but do I really need to know what your new name is? I mean, and I mean this honestly. And so now it's carried over into. I'm trying to remember what I'm supposed to say homeless people are now, because nobody knows what it means.
It's something displaced. I heard it the other day when they were talking about the crisis in LA, and they said it was accommodation something like that. It was something like it was so complicated where you'd have to open up a dictionary and be like, are these 3 words together making any sense?
Right. And I'm just like, do you guys just want people to hate us more? I mean, so I watched an interview yesterday, and this guy was dead on. He goes, he's talking about Donald Trump, and he goes, look, this guy's going to be the nominee. He might be in jail. He's still going to get 43 to 47% of the vote. And one of the other people that said home deprived, or whatever the word for the day is for word salad land, is he goes, 43 to 47% of the nation hates, loathes, disdains Democrats. It goes, those people, it doesn't matter who is there, they're not voting for you. It's like, that was the most honest description I've seen. But it explains a lot of it. And we do more damage to ourselves. I'm a hanger-on Democrat like I'm a hanger-on Catholic. I'm not good with either one of them right now.
This morning I was watching Bill Maher interview Vivek Ramaswamy, the guy running as a Republic. Yeah, it was pretty interesting, but he kind of like lost me in certain concepts of his where he wants to abolish the IRS and FBI. Yeah. And weird shit like that. But they were talking about shit. It just went out of my head.
Here's a conversation I had about him. He is the actual presidential candidate. If Trump ends up in prison, DeSantis is an asshole. Nobody likes him. Everybody thinks his wife's weird. They think his kids are weird.
I love the boots, okay? Nobody else can carry out white cowboy boots like he can.
Well, I know, got white swamp boots. And his wife was crying, talking about him picking up the kids from school when she was like going to the doctor. I mean,
that's what every fucking husband does.
Right.
And the wife is busy.
That is your job. It doesn't matter if you're the governor. You pull up in your fucking SUV and go get your kids. You're not special. So Ramaswamy is the most literate. He's the most well-spoken. He argues brilliantly. And then he's got just enough crazy bullshit to keep the crazy ass whites on the right haunted, which is there's your FBI, IRS bullshit, which, okay, you get rid of the IRS. You think we're going to voluntarily pay taxes?
I mean, it was something.
Have we met?
So he actually went into details about the FBI, about how they're out of 35,000, I don't know the numbers, I'm just quoting him directly. Out of 35,000 people in the FBI, 15,000, I think, are field agents. He's okay with them and wants to integrate them into some part of the Marshal Service or the DOJ or something like that. The 20,000 who are in the Hoover building just as admin, he has a problem with just those guys.
Right. Well, I mean, isn't AI going to take care of most of their jobs within the next 10 years? So I understand that. But look, the FBI is great when you need them. And if you're on the other side of them, you don't like them because they never go away. And people that are in trouble with them and continue to make fun of them and challenge them and everything, you go, you do not understand. They're never going away. Do we need them? Yeah, actually, I mean, we need some form of federal government intervention. States' rights, for people that don't understand what states' rights means, states' rights in Oklahoma means the same 6 families that have controlled this state since they killed all of the black people and Indian natives that had oil still run the state. And so they run the police, they run OSBI, all the other stuff. They're in charge. Monetarily, their politicians get in. And then the good old boys club stays in charge. That is what actual states' rights means. And people don't understand it. And he's just saying that because he needs their votes. He knows better, trust me. But he's also done the algorithm that tells him how many votes he needs and where they are and how to get them.
It would be so interesting because I think next week what they were discussing was him going up against Christie, because that would be an interesting 2 people talking.
Oh, yeah. Right.
The one thing that I like what he talked about was he was trying to say that we need to abolish super PACs from donating to presidential campaigns. He was basically asking if everybody would make a pledge because he's using his own money. Nobody's
going to make a pledge. Look, the good news is he's rich enough to be able to run. The other good news is you've got a legitimate brown candidate, legitimate, that even if you don't like him, he's articulate enough for everybody to go along with. My challenge would be his example of how to run government right now is he's so young, is Donald Trump, George Bush Sr., and what you presently have over there right now. That's what he knows. You know, that's what he came up through. So when you talk about privatization of schools and everything, well, he's brilliant. So of course, for him, that works. We have an entire part of our society that need to know how to read, do enough math to live and get through life. And that's as far, there's always going to be a bottom 25%. It doesn't matter how great the teacher is. There's 25% of the population that can only go to a certain level. And I'm sure I'll get some hate mail for that, but that's just a fact. I don't care what society you're in. Look, I've got a guy working for me that came to work for me when he was 16 years old. Talented, smart, everything else. His mother died when he was 7. So he probably quit going to school at 7. And so he therefore is stuck in these 2 jobs that he's way too smart for, way too talented for, but that's his life. And I can't do anything about that. You can show people the way, that kind of stuff. But, you know, if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. I mean, it sucks, but that's where we are. But I'm telling you what, he's got a shot. Don't anybody discount this guy. And I know in India, you're like we were with the Kennedys. You're like, I just want one of our people in. You know, every Irish household you went to after John F. Kennedy had a picture of the Pope and a picture of John F. Kennedy. And John F. Kennedy's family was a crime family. They literally are a crime family.
Bootleggers, right? Or did they make their money during bootlegging? Yeah.
They were the shippers. Like when everything that came over from Europe that then went to the mafia, they were the next rung up.
Oh, logistics, Sean. That's what they call it.
Logistics is everything. Well, we call it shipping back in the day. So, but we did not give a shit that they were criminals because, you know, I mean, we came over here poor and, you know, that's what we had to do to make a living. They just were better at it. So it is, I mean, I'm telling you, watch this guy. And if he isn't president this time, maybe one of them has to pick him up as VP and he'll be president next time.
That's what he said. He said that the one thing he pledged on Bill Maher was he told him that if anybody else asked me to be their vice president, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he means it.
Yeah,
He's done the analytics. That dude has done analytics on every damn thing he's saying. Look, you never see his eyes move up to the right. He is never searching for an answer, ever.
Mm-hmm.
Watch these politicians. If you watch this debate without Donald Trump, I mean, who cares? It's boring as shit. All of these guys are going to talk about wokeism and gender bathrooms, all this other bullshit.
I wish they let Trump dial in from prison like a rapper
From
recording
prison.
an album
in the orange jacket,
uh-huh.
with and he's making a leather belt. Right.
Yeah, someone's talking and he's going like, boo, fake news, all of that usual nonsense that he was doing on stage.
and you know, the most annoying thing is Chris Christie is probably the most American guy up there. He was governor of New Jersey. And for anybody that knows anything about organized crime, I just
Josie
Google organized crime. Yeah. And I'm not saying the guy's dirty. He was a federal prosecutor and he was governor. He's sharp, you know. I would take him. Look, the challenge for everybody. Hold on, I'm going to sneeze here. Sorry. The challenge for everybody is, where do we go as a country? Since COVID, the super rich have become uber rich, and we have a new level of poverty as the cost of housing goes up that is untenable. You can't keep this up this way. It is untenable is the word. So the next person going in, if it's Joe Biden, nobody wants Joe Biden. We'll just take him other than Trump. Nobody wants. We know he's old. You go, are we going to move? Because religious institutions are trying to move us back to the 1950s when they were still in control. The right wing is trying to move us into Christian nationalism. Look, from a person whose family did the Crusades and murdered Muslims because they were Muslims, and we were probably part of the fucking Inquisition as well, because I don't think we were in control of.
I'm sure you'll be helping the Spanish during that shit.
Exactly, right. And so from somebody with all of that in my background, I tell everybody, watch out, man. You do not want this. And I am direct lineage from the last Catholic king and queen from Scotland. Last one. And the Protestants took over, and the place has never really prospered, but not because of that. They just, it's Scotland. They like to drink. But it is, I don't know what to say to people with what's going on. They're like, put Jesus back in the classroom. And you're like there's 10 people named Jesus in the classroom already. I don't know if you know that.
And that was Jesus's original color, so leave it alone.
Right, leave it alone, brother. It is bizarre. And look, you're not here for this, or you and I would be talking about it every effing day. How this is, and combating that type of change is weird. So I went to a town hall yesterday of 2 Democratic women. One was a House of Representatives, one was a senator. And they were talking about the teacher. What they did is the teachers needed a raise, and they tied the teachers' raise to a voucher program that allowed the Catholic Church to get up to $150 million in tax refunds, essentially. Weird deal. One could not pass without the other. And they're like, and the Senate was fighting with the House and the governor was fighting with this, but each one of them put that little latch on there. The fighting was all a show to make all of us think they were looking out for somebody. The whole time, all of these evangelical Christians were giving the evil, as they say it, because all of us Catholics are supposed to be going to hell. They gave the enemy $150 million. And slid it in under the rug, like people literally don't know.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So back to Sinead O'Connor and a theocracy. I've literally taken that whole full circle, didn't I?
I know. It's a nice callback, Sean.
Dude, I cannot believe this is where we are. I mean, I am. And it isn't a worry thing for me because, I'm in my last quarter. You're in your second half in life. I'm timing out. So this is not an issue for me. But And young people, I hate to say this, they don't go to church enough to even know what a theocracy is.
Yeah.
So these guys are going to work behind the scenes and claw their way in one by one by one. And then all of a sudden it switches. Like women's rights here have just gone to shit because young women didn't vote. I mean, quite frankly, suburban women voted for the bad people, or, you know, the people working against them, not necessarily the bad people, but the people working against them, and young women didn't vote at all.
Yeah.
I don't, you know,
I
good to be a dude.
The more things are like siloed, the more that we're not aware of other things. Like yesterday when I was watching the World Cup final, I was out at a pub and nobody knew that there was a World Cup going on except for me.
Wow.
Yeah, because
no shit.
Like, Women's World Cup, India didn't even broadcast 90% of the matches.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
I was just watching it on the US Prime account that I was using because that was the only place where all the group games were there.
Isn't that crazy? And now what you found is all the other European teams have caught up with the Americans. So it's going to be huge. Yep. Did you see the French ad where it was actually the female players and they had replaced them with men for their ad? And then at the end of it, they showed how they did it.
Oh, nope, I haven't.
Look that one up, and you will just, because you do that kind of work, and you will just go, okay, that might very well be the best ad I've ever seen. It was solid. Like they're just making fun of people for being so dumb. And only French people would do.
Oh, dude, what was that amazing thing I heard the other day where it was part of a ad read that someone had sent me, like, to just copy proof it. And it said something like, so easy, even a child could use it. And I was like, dude, all you mean to say is that even if you're a fucking moron, you will figure out how the hell to use this. All you've done is change my tone and cadence into so easy a child can use it.
God, that's awful. Yeah, that is awful. True, but awful. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting next couple of years. So I don't know if I'm going to watch that debate. So did I tell you I'm going up Tuesday to go talk to some black preachers in Tulsa? Have I told you this?
You mentioned it last week.
Okay. So I'm going up there to basically explain to them what's happening. So I did kind of figure out another strategy thing. The reason they attacked Tulsa is for any of those people to get information, they have to come to Oklahoma City and be in the room. And that's 3 hours of their day. And if you're a parent, you just don't have time to do it. It was a better strategic move than I gave these guys credit for. I just thought they were being bigots. But they're strategic bigots, you know, they're different type of bigot. So I'm interested to see how that one goes. And then that's it, bro. That is where things are. And then Mr. 60 tomorrow. So
I know. What are the plans
for
that day?
There's no fucking plans. I told people to please bring in toiletry items for this school that takes in teen moms.
Okay, I am putting a link in the description again. We did that last week when you had mentioned you were doing this.
I appreciate that. We literally got like a truckload of stuff for them. Yeah, so it's pretty good. Awesome. Here's my joke. How much time do we have?
We have 6 minutes. We're good.
Oh, good. Okay, when I was a little boy, I'm the youngest of 7 kids. Much like you all have way too many children over there. We had way too many children over here back then. And so for your birthday, my mom would make you a cake. That's all you got. You didn't get presents, and nobody gave a shit that you were a year older. Quite frankly, nobody cared about kids at all. And so I would get a German chocolate cake once a year. And that was I was the happiest person in the world, like your family on the motorcycle.
I'm telling you, the simple things in life, those were the best fucking things.
So let me tell you how life has changed. So a friend of mine, she's got a company called Kidda Desserts, and her desserts are off the chain. I mean, they're beautiful. And she had a German chocolate cake, and I told Kathy, I go, I want that. Guess how much a German chocolate cake like that costs?
Now, probably a couple of hundred. That is what they're charging these days.
It was with tip, $120. My mom would shit in her pants.
Think about, Sean,
And-
you going to your mother and saying that, hey, I need you to buy ingredients worth almost $100 and please go to the kitchen and make this for my birthday. You would have got
Yeah.
the biggest title slap ever.
That's right. Oh, I'd have got hit. I would have been beat with a broom for that one. It's funny, and I've never done this before. So my daughter Angelina is a phenomenal baker, and maybe 10 years ago made me a literal cake that looked like a watermelon, and then a piece was out of it on top, and I was like, "That's the best cake I've ever seen." So we'll see if this one competes with her. She is a, thank God she didn't become a baker. She's a dietitian, but at a cancer center. But she is the best baker I'd seen, and that watermelon cake was it was amazing. It really was.
Tell Angelina this joke about dietitian versus nutritionist, because I think in the UK a dietitian is the actual one who has gone to school and been licensed to do it.
Correct. Same thing here.
Nutritionist is like just some jackass on the road giving nutrition advice. So
wow.
the joke is that's like someone goes to dentist school and we call them a dentist, and the other one we're like, that's a toothologist if you want to pull out a tooth. That's the difference between dietitian and nutritionist.
That was good. That was good. So she has more initials after her name than most people I know, but there's not a PhD, and I'm sure eventually she will. So she has, I believe, 2 masters and her regular degree. Smart as a whip. I assumed she was going to go to med school. That seemed to be the plan. And then she took to this, and I was like, so you're going to be a chef? Huh. She goes, it's not a chef. I go, oh, it's a really, really, really well-educated chef. Yes, it is.
Sean, you almost went like slight Indian immigrant parent on a poor child.
Hey, look, somebody asked me this weekend, no one, for some reason it was overly publicized. I was turning 60, and they go, what's the best point in your life? And I go, man, I've had a shit ton of them, but the actual real one for me, not for anybody around me or anything else. And I've got a lot of accolades. I said, having my book in the library. And they were like, that is it? And I go, yeah, as a kid, the library, man, that was my thing. And not only just because they had air conditioning, but that's where my friends and I hung out. How weird is that? You wouldn't think that from me. And it was the single coolest thing in the world when I got sent, and I didn't know they were taking it. And when I got my Dewey Decimal System note on there with a picture of the book, I was like, I have finally arrived. And honest to God, my family was laughing, going, that's the thing you care the most about. And I go, to me, yes. Not only is it in print, it was a bestseller, which is not the biggest thing. The library was the biggest thing. How crazy is that shit?
That is awesome. By the way, I'll leave a link to that book if anybody wants it. We will do international shipping as soon as Sean and me get offline and discuss how the hell we manage it.
How do we do it without the book costing $100? Just tell them to print it off of Amazon. Printing would be way cheaper.
I think so.
Yeah. All right, my man. Wish me the best the next couple of days. It's going to be pretty funny. It's a weird deal. It really is. I mean it. What are you, 33?
35. I turned 36 this year.
Get out. Well, you're still a baby in my world. That's I have kids 2 years younger than you. So
I know that.
it is it's gonna be interesting to see where all this leads. But I've enjoyed doing this with you, just so you know. And when we put my catalog of life shit together, this is probably the one that they should listen to.
Yeah, they'll
really
probably get to know you as good as I do.
Right.
Or even better, considering the topics we talk about.
Well, I enjoy that. I hope people that listen enjoy it as much as I do, because I enjoy doing it.
Sure. So do
cool.
I. All right,
man.
Happy birthday.
Clack us out.
That was the Villagers podcast. Sean turned 60, so it's going to be Old Man and Brown Guy from next week. That's what I'm renaming the damn thing. Thank you.